the BPMN.
Right, can you hear me okay?
The OMG is here today at the Workflow Analytica, moderated by Simon and from Trisotech. And the mission is to ensure that process models can truly be exchanged across tools and that standards don't just exist, but actually work. And I hope now that the whole internet is working, that the connection is stable, and I would like to hand over the stage to Simon. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Right. Slightly complicated technical setup today, but all for good, I think. Right. Can we get the projection on the screen as well? Perfect. Good. All right. So welcome everyone to this year's BPMN model interchange demo. My name is Falco Menger. Sorry for the announcement being slightly changed, but yeah, I'm Falco Menger. I'm from Camunda. I'm in my day job, I am Senior Principal Solution Architect, but today I'm wearing my other hat, which is to be our Open Standards Ambassador. And I had the honor to even participate in the finalization of BPMN about 17 years ago, and BPMN that was right. And shortly after we created another working group at OMG, which is the BPMN Model Interchange Working Group, short MyWig. And Today, I'm joined here partially remotely, but also here in the room by 10 other vendors that are going to jointly model the same BPMN diagram and show us how interchange works practically between the tools. In fact, we have also a bit of a connection to Berlin here because we have been here 2013 for our very first of these live demonstrations. In that case, all the vendors were sitting in the room physically to do kind of a similar exercise, although maybe with a much simpler model than today. And today we will see a more advanced show of that. The model interchange working group in general, what is this about? The idea is that after BPMN version 2 introduced this shared file format that allows all tools to interchange the files and not just share pictures of things, we thought that it would be a good idea to have a test suite. In fact, OMG itself provides the standards and also guidance on what conformance means, but there's not actually a testing facility at OMG. There's no certification of the vendors that the implementations are correct. And this is exactly where the MyWig jumps in. We have designed a test suite of reference models that have been well curated by different vendors agreeing on what's the correct interpretation of BPMN. And I brought you one more extreme example here, which is really a test case of almost the entire language in a single diagram. And you see here on the left-hand side is the reference diagram. And on the right-hand side is the rendering in a tool that had imported that. So testing with this test suite means you get reference models. You can either import them and then take a screenshot or export them again, or there's even one exercise, which means you have to actually draw the entire thing from scratch and then export, and then we can still see whether this is all rendering correctly. And we also allow tool vendors or users to submit test results against their implementations, and we have a large collection of test results available online. Sorry for the small fine print here, but I wanted to give you a bit of a feeling how many test results we collected over the last 15 years. And there's one interesting thing that stands out. It is the vendors that are regularly participating in these interchanges, in these demonstrations, they are the ones that are really ironing out all their issues with import and export of BPMN, and not only the file serialization, but actually also the entire interpretation of the language itself. So that's available online. And now for today's demo, we have prepared a nice and large travel planning process. I will not go into too much detail about what this process is about, but rather highlight that we're going to create this model together live with 10 different tools. And as you can see, we have kind of sliced up this diagram into several parts. Every vendor gets to play one part and then hands over to the next vendor. There's also a small sub-process embedded inside the same diagram that yet more vendors will participate in creating. And the way we're doing this to make it fast and entertaining is that as soon as somebody's finished, they drop the file on Dropbox, and we can then quickly hand over to the next person. And indeed, there are a couple of people sitting here with their laptops open. One is actually downstairs on a larger table, and then we have several people remote that will join in here when it's their turn. And of course, I will narrate a little bit, and I will also, of course, introduce you the different vendors that are participating so that you get to know them a little bit and maybe also see what is special about their tools. So without further ado, let us go into the interoperability demo. And I will put my Teams meeting here on screen. Stop the sharing first of all, so that we can then see the models as they are being created. Let me put this nice and big and full screen, maybe like so. All right, and yeah, the first person I would like to ask to share your screen is Björn Hardegen from MID. Björn is the business line manager for bPanda, which is the tool that we're going to see here today. Let's see. Björn, can you share your screen? Okay, there we go. bPanda. So a little bit about MID while Björn is getting started. MID is a German engineering company based in Nuremberg, and they are providing tools for business process management and enterprise architecture management. bPanda here in particular is a tool that provides a holistic view that integrates different process management perspectives with obviously enterprise architecture management. For that latter part, they're using the Archimate standard by the Open Group. And of course, for process modeling, they're using BPMN in version 2. Their motivation for joining the Model Interchange working group is, of course, to make sure that the implementation of BPMN is correct, and also to make sure that the models are not just locked into their own tool, but they can travel freely in and out in collaboration with maybe other tools or other sources of information. And yeah, we can see Björn is creating the first part of the model, starting with a start event, adding a couple of data objects, and yeah, creates our first little snippet of BPMN that we will then export. Yeah, bPanda focuses on the ease of use for not only business process experts, but actually everybody involved. So they try to keep a very clean user interface and also implement internationalization of models. So you can translate the models and provide them in different languages. I will explain a little bit later how this even works. And also color interchange, meaning you can put colors in the diagrams and they will also travel along, which funny enough is not a BPMN feature, so maybe something that needed to be added on top. And yeah, we see Björn creating several pools as a preparation for the larger collaboration that we will create. And one thing that I find personally interesting in these interchange demos is really that you get a feeling for a lot of different tools and how they tackle the user experience. So if you are looking for a BPMN tool, maybe this is also a great showcase to see what might fit to your style of working and what might be a good experience to work with. Right. I guess Björn is about to finish. Now here we see the Dropbox folder. So he will drop the file there, and then the next tool will take over. Right. So the next vendor will be Camunda. In this case, I won't do it personally, but I invited my colleague Maciej Barakowski, who is a senior front-end software engineer at Camunda, and he is using the Camunda desktop modeler. And you can see he just opened the file that he received from Björn, and it, as to be expected, it looks exactly the same. So we literally have tools in MyWig to make sure it's pixel perfect how everything translates, including, for example, when these edges are bended at a certain position, that all needs to be transported correctly. So a little bit about Camunda. We're a software company building a platform for process orchestration and automation. Our product is used to model and execute end-to-end business processes that can span people, systems, and devices. And yeah, we rely on open standards since the very beginning. As I mentioned, we were also a member of the BPMN standardization team, and we implemented BPMN and also now DMN to model processes and decision logic. And using these standards, we are happy that the work stays open and accessible. We don't have a vendor lock-in. If anybody wants to collaborate with other tools, that is possible. And actually, through the Model Interchange working group, we met several other vendors that we then also have common customers that are using maybe another vendor's tool for business analysis and Camunda's tools for automation. And yeah, fun fact is that in the very early days, 15 years ago, Camunda didn't even have a good business modeling tool. Therefore, our main motivation also joining this effort was really to enable this collaboration of different tools. By now, our tools have improved a lot. We have created even an own open source modeling framework. And funny enough, even some of the vendors in this demo are using the same open source libraries. Moving on to the next vendor, which is SAP Signavio. We have here Philip Maschke, who is the product manager for SAP Signavio, who is doing the modeling for us today. And we see also he's pulling the file from Dropbox and imports it into Signavio. Signavio is a platform that is unified to discover, model, optimize business processes, and even orchestrate them. It combines process mining, modeling, and task mining capabilities. There's also features that are AI-powered in order to get insights and identify bottlenecks in processes, and also opportunities for automation. And then you basically have a seamless transition between or from analysis all the way to automation without the need to switch tools. Nevertheless, Signavio also was one of the founding members of the Model Interchange working group, and since then they have always had a good and working import and export of BPMN XML. Yeah, maybe also showcasing a little bit what the vendor provides. They have a way to accelerate implementations by providing industry-specific process libraries and reference models. And basically they align with SAP and of course non-SAP systems as well. And then they can connect to enterprise applications, RPA platforms to enable end-to-end process automation. And their motivation for joining the Model Interchange working group and making sure their implementations really interchanged diagrams correctly or models correctly was that they want to be a strategic hub for digital transformation initiatives. So therefore, they needed that ability to exchange and interconnect. And we see the diagrams growing and growing. We have already several vendors now adding to it. And interesting is always to see how's the user experience. We can see different technical properties also being added, different task types being changed. And we see now the model gets exported. So Signavio, in this case, has an internal format, how the processes are represented, and when they create XML, then that's an export functionality. And that's totally fine. There's no force that's saying one should use the BPMN XML format natively. Some vendors do that, but others have their own internal representation and export it. And of course, when you have these translation scripts, it's extra important to be careful to create the correct format. So yeah, we can see that the file is being saved. We also follow a little bit of a naming convention so everybody knows what file to work on next. Right. And I can already start talking a little bit about our next presenter. That will be BOC Group. We're joined here by Zbigniew Misiak from Poland, who is a senior consultant at BOC Group. And yeah, Adonis will be the BPMN tool that we see in action here. Adonis is already a long-term member of the working group as well, or BOC Group, the company, right? And the company focuses on creating enterprise modeling software aimed at enhancing effective business management in a digital era. Their products actually cover a wide variety of domains, not just business process management, as we see here in Adonis, but they also have software for enterprise architecture management, which is called Ado IT. And then there is a risk and compliance management tool called Ado GCR. Right, and now, moment of truth, the model got imported. We see the diagram looks slightly differently in Adonis due to certain choices of how they are rendering. But yeah, the positions of everything and then, of course, the naming are all preserved. So this is still an absolute valid way of rendering this diagram that we are creating here. And now we see how Zbigniew is creating additional elements to enhance the model. So Adonis was also one of the first tools to implement not only the visual diagram interchange, but also interchange of executable or generally extension properties in the diagrams. So BPMN, part of the reason why we are able to work with this over many different technology that are coming and going is that we have a native built-in extension mechanism, and all vendors can basically add their own attributes to facilitate technical execution. And since the language itself is technology agnostic, vendors, of course, need to have a way to bind their particular technologies using extensions. And yeah, as I said, Adonis, although it's focusing mostly on modeling, they also actually have partnerships with execution vendors. But yeah, they are able to display technical attributes that are coming from maybe an execution engine, and you would certainly be able to see that. And more importantly, also to not lose it. So if you do an exercise like we see today, where you take a model, import it, do some modification, and export it again, then it's very important that not only the visual diagram stays intact, but also any extensions that have been added to it. And as I mentioned earlier, there are actually even extensions that we created in the model interchange working group. We have seen over the years that there are a couple of aspects that have not been covered directly by the specification. And since currently the OMG is trying to keep the BPMN spec relatively stable, we decided to add or to propose additional extensions. One of them would be the interchange of color. So if these colors that we see here in Adonis, if they should be exported to the next tool, there's now a way to interchange that. And we also saw that earlier there was a vendor supporting translation of a model, and that's also an additional extension that we created at the model interchange working group that we can now interchange translations so that the same BPMN diagram can carry multiple different languages, and you can pick which language you want to show in the diagram or in the rendering. All right. I think Zbigniew is about to export the file. you can see that's a native capability in Adonis right in the menus, and then we'll add it to Dropbox and the next tool will take over. Right. The next up will be Tim Stevenson from KnowProcess. KnowProcess is a digital automation consultancy based in the UK. So I think he officially wins the prize for traveling the furthest today to come to Berlin. Yeah, and Tim has actually been involved in BPM space since a long time, all the way dating back to Staffware and the XPDL specification, if anybody still remembers that. So yeah, he's an original member also of the Interchange working group, and I collaborate with him a lot on the actual tools that we're using for testing the Interchange. So if you or a vendor submit their test results, then we have different automated tools to validate, for example, perform a very simple XML schema validation, but also much more advanced tests that will check if all the properties are still where they need to be. So yeah, a bit more about him and his company. He basically enjoys the possibilities of model-driven automation, which is still super useful feature even in the age of agentic AI and cloud execution. The beauty, as also stated several times today, the beauty of BPMN is that it can serve as a common language between business users and engineers on a whiteboard, as well as inside the engine where execution will happen. And KnowProcess actually offers a hosted process as a service solution alongside their consulting services, of course. And yeah, my model interchange working group in particular continues to provide a rich source of tests that they can use to improve their products and also build pipelines to discuss. And one interesting thing that we also see in our working group, although the main topic is interchange, we will also have a lot of discussions about how BPMN, how the specification is supposed to be interpreted. So sometimes we will disagree on how a certain element should be rendered or should be certain possibility is even there in the diagrams and modeling. And then our working group serves as a platform to discuss these and ideally find a consensus among the active vendors. And then that could be a proposal that goes back to the BPMN task force for a future revision. Right. Looks like I need to speed up a little bit here as Tim is about to finish his part. And we can already see the Dropbox is filling up nicely with a list of model versions that we're generating. And we also see there's a couple of PNG files. So first vendors are also looking into rendering it and double checking things are correct, just as a fun exercise. We kind of like to see if it works in all directions, right? Okay, so now we see the next tool, which will be provided by viadee. viadee is a German consulting company that provides technology agnostic IT consulting. And they provide a tool that's called BPMN Modeler and Enterprise for Confluence. And as the name suggests, it's a plugin for Confluence so that you can model BPMN diagrams directly inside your wiki, inside your knowledge base, and can basically embed that into wiki pages so that model and surrounding documentation can live together. And that's exactly one of their experiences that in their BPMN consulting projects, they often find this need that the process models need to live next to general business knowledge. And that's why they started to build an own tool for that. Yeah, the tool itself features flexible views, collaborative workflows, and also a traceable version control based on what Confluence provides. And yeah, joining MyWig for viadee means that they can give something back to the community by also sharing their experiences and, of course, actively influencing future developments, let it be through extensions that the MyWig is creating, or also by joining these discussions about how the spec needs to be interpreted or how it should be evolved. In the MyWig, we also have several people that are active at other OMG working groups, like myself, for example. I also happen to be leader of the DMN task force at OMG, and with other people that are participating in the standards. So it's also a nice platform to synchronize about latest developments. So switching tools again, the next on stage is OmniNet with their tool OmniTracker. Some of the people here in the room might remember them from last year, where they also were available here as an exhibitor. And presenter here is Konstantin Saucik. He's technical consultant for BPM. And OmniTracker is a comprehensive business process ecosystem enabling end-to-end BPMN modeling, execution, and automation within a single platform. It obviously supports real-world process orchestration and not just documentation only. The motivation for them to join MyWig, as so often, is support interoperability and consistency, have the BPMN implementation double-checked by the working group, and make sure that OmniTracker aligns with the standard and with best practices that are evolving. So we can see also OmniTracker adding additional elements to the main process. And always interesting to pay a little bit attention to the look and feel of the user experience. Some vendors have like a property panel on the left-hand side of the screen. OmniTracker here is one of the tools where a lot of magic happens directly on the canvas. So you don't need to move around a lot with the mouse, but you can directly select an element and add to it. And then on the right-hand side, we see all the technical properties, which are also part of the BPMN standard. There's a large portion of features that are kind of hidden under the surface. And that's why also we call the language model and notation, because it's no longer like in BPMN version 1, where it is just a notation, just graphical diagrams. But now these models, they carry a lot of technical information as well, all the way, of course, to execution bindings to certain technologies, depending on what the vendors are integrating. All right, and we see here the file is getting exported. 2 more vendors to go. And now basically the main flow is done, but we still have a small sub-process that we wanted to model as well. It's part of the overall diagram. So we will now be joined by Frank from Aris. And he will show us how to create this little sub-process in his tool. Again, different user experience here. We watched. And I need to look at my phone because I received like a last-minute content update from him. So Aris is a global leader in process intelligence software, empowering organizations to understand, design, optimize, and govern business process as they are adopting autonomous systems and agentic AI. Of course, Aris is very well known in the space as a modeling tool and also a tool that can then generate for execution. And these decades of process expertise combined with advanced AI capabilities really enable enterprises to unlock innovation, maintain operational excellence, and achieve strategic outcomes with transparency, accountability, and control. Right. Looks like 5G signal is really not that good inside here. There we go. Yeah, also always interesting to see how the repository around the modeling is working, right? And Aris indeed has a big repository system behind that allows you to capture the models, version them all in one place, and then also combine them with organizational chart, with data modeling, with IT systems, and many more. Everything is multi-use, hosted in the cloud nowadays, and that's what you would expect from a modern BPM platform. And the motivation for being in myWIG is, of course, to, again, improve quality and interoperability of model interchange. And I also met situations where my customers were working with Aris and wanted to do this round trip within their production project. And knowing Frank and knowing that we tested this in the myWIG always meant that I can safely say this will work. Not so sure for vendors that I don't meet regularly in the myWIG. And then on the other hand, it's also a nice way for Aris to promote their tools to customers and promote their support of the BPMN standard. All right, Frank basically also now combined the two models. We saw that the small diagram he started to create is now embedded. So it's again one single file carrying two diagrams, but it's all one model. That's maybe also a nice distinction between notation and model. A single model can be several processes combined, and one can then navigate depending how the tool implements that between the different views in that same model. All right, last but not least, I welcome Simon from Trisotech. That was the Simon that was announced in the very beginning. Unfortunately, he could not be here today, so I kind of stepped in to do the moderation. He is R&D lead at Trisotech. And Simon, we don't see your screen yet. Would be a pity to not witness that last step of the model in live. And there we go. All right. So Trisotech is a company that provides both very advanced BPMN modeling capabilities, but also execution. So you can basically use them also as a complete stack for modeling and orchestrating processes. They are very close to the BPMN semantics as in the standard, and therefore there's no hidden engine behavior or vendor reinterpretation going on. So they're kind of very close to the literal implementation of BPMN. And of course, they have a production-grade hosted service, API first, event-driven execution, provide full traceability for everything that's running. And it's also built for regulated environments, not just for modeling. And then also we have integrated decision modeling. Decisions are done with the decision model and notation. DMN is probably well known by the audience here. And that removes decision logic from the BPMN processes and extracts them into separate model. So there's more clarity and reuse and portability of the decision models and decision logic. And I'm very happy to have them also as a contributor to the DMN specification. Good. Now we're done with the modeling. Now we have an additional bonus, and that will be Boris Sinchenko from CaseAgile will be joining us. And they provide both modeling and BPMN visualization tools. And today we will actually see their visualization in action. Boris, I don't see your screen yet. Maybe if you could start your screen sharing. So CaseAgile provides two tools. One is called Enterprise Composer, which allows importing or creating Visio executable business processes. And Visio, as we all know, is normally more like a drawing tool. So you have to really do some special tricks to teach Visio what a BPMN model is, and also to have these underlying properties and teach Visio in the end to export valid BPMN XML. All right, now we see Boris opening the files from the Dropbox. And yeah, he will show us BPMN View, which is a web-based free tool to visualize BPMN. And one of the interesting things in his tool is that we can see the different diagrams that are part of our BPMN file. We can also see on the right-hand side all the technical properties, everything that's hidden in this invisible part of the model. And whenever he selects an element on the diagram, we will obviously see the properties on the right-hand side. Also worth noting, there are various ways to export the diagram as pictures. And on the top, we see there is this little language selector, which would allow different translations of the models to be displayed. Right. So, yeah, with that, we see Boris exporting some final representation of the file. And this will actually also be published afterwards. So what we typically do is that the test case we do for these live demos will actually become the next test case that is included in the actual library. And usually we take exactly today's result, which has all the maybe also extensions from vendors, and make that part of the upcoming test suite. All right, now I guess it's back to my screen. And I will share a couple of summary thoughts here. Okay. Right. So I think I already summarized it a couple of times. Well, first of all, congratulations to all the participants. We've seen a model created by 10 different tools in real time, and nothing got lost. The diagrams looked pixel perfect in every tool. And yeah, that's not an easy feat given the complexity of the language. And what we've seen in the past is indeed that only if you practice this with other vendors, you will actually end up with something useful. I've seen many times also, for example, when customers migrate from other tools to Camunda, that if a tool vendor had only tested against themselves, they didn't catch any errors that they made in their interpretation. So yeah, also on this slide, I am already showcasing some of the extensions. Some of them were in action during this demo. So MyWig has created additional facilities to interchange colors with BPMN. As I mentioned, we have this internationalization specification so that you can have a single BPMN file with multiple languages inside, and then a tool can switch the language that it renders on screen. A recent addition is the facility to add custom icons. Custom icons are permitted by BPMN. What we added here is basically a way to interchange it. So this little AI icon there on this AI task is something that can now be embedded in the BPMN file, and another vendor would be able to also display that icon. And then there's one for the nerds, this little message icon here on the message flow. That's something where the position wasn't interchangeable in BPMN, so we created a small extension so that the position of that can be interchanged as well. Now, a bit of practical advice, because we've thought also hard, what can we give you more other than showcasing a big round of tools here? Maybe if you're in the process of selecting BPMN tools, or you're also wondering if there's better tools out there, then indeed the Model Interchange Working Group can give you valuable information. Many tools can claim BPMN compliance, but nobody's there to kind of police them. OMG is not requiring any certification in order to call your tool BPMN compliant. So MyWig really stepped in to create a test suite. And as I said, it's not only testing interchange of diagrams, but really you can only get that right if you implement the language and you understand the language correctly. And therefore, we're doing these regular live demos and tests. And so if you are buying a tool, you can ask the vendor if they are participating or if they are testing at least. I know some vendors that are using the test suite internally, but not necessarily share the results. That is fine for us too. But of course, publicly stating and compliance and sharing the results is also a way to make this more visible. And of course, if you're thinking about certain collaborations, meaning you want to use one tool for designing and another tool for execution, ask your vendors if they have experience with interchanging. And if not, we can actually also point them to our effort, because the working group here is free to join for everybody. You don't have to be an OMG member in order to join this working group. And also, users can test their own tools. So if you have a tool that you're wondering how it compares, you can use our test suite and even submit results to us. And we will give you feedback on how we interpret the findings that are coming out of this. So definitely check this out. Link is in the slides, which we'll also make available to you. And then last but not least, you may want to be interested in a little bit of a general update. What is going on at OMG right now? What is happening in BPMN's family of standards, with also several sister specifications coming up. And as I always like to say, we're not working on BPMN 3.0. We rather extend the ecosystem by adding additional standards. DMN should be no stranger here, which is a really good adoption in the market as well, which obviously extends business rules and decisions into a separate model, which can then be invoked by BPMN. And if I have a spare second, I can also take you to a small historic moment, because it happens to be that we were just ready to have the DMN 1.7 specification submitted at OMG. There were actually a couple of glitches this week why we couldn't do it on Monday. So I'm basically ready to submit the new version of the specification to the OMG architecture board, which happens by this little button here. Okay. So what will happen with this now is the OMG will review this in the next weeks. In June, we have a quality gate which is the OMG architecture board. And once that is done, the beta specification for 1.7 will come out. And that's basically sealing the contents. After that, there's a long process of formalities and certain adoption votes, but that is formalities, as I say. So DMN 1.6 is already out as a beta, and that will also hopefully finally get this publication vote in June. There was a little bit of a hold up in that cycle. But again, the beta that you find online today is the new version of the specification. No content changes will come to that. So you can start working with that, start asking your vendors for implementing that version, especially if you're looking forward to maybe some of the new field functions and stuff like that. Also, a similar fate hit shared data model and notation and SCE, the specification common elements. These are almost about to be published, but basically ready to be used and ready to be implemented. And then a last thought, I think that was already articulated a little bit in the panel that we had before here. How about new features? Do we need new features in BPMN to support artificial intelligence? And our feeling is rather not. So we have no plans to add additional features, because BPMN is based on the workflow patterns, and that catalog of patterns remains valid regardless of whether it's a human, a system, or an AI agent that is driving the process. So we don't expect new patterns to be showing up just because AI is driving it. But what we do see indeed is a tendency that process models may rather become the output of an agentic generation rather than maybe being the input that a human puts together. So maybe stay tuned for a future version of this demo where we have some agentic action on stage and not just us clicking the diagram tools. But yeah, we'll see how that evolves. So we're doing this every year or every 2 years, depending how far how fast we go. So stay tuned for more. And for now, I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you for hanging out with us for this interesting live demonstration. And for those of you who are here in Berlin, of course, feel free to grab all of us afterwards if you want to have some deep dive into BPMN history or other OMG interesting things. Right. Thank you.